few new features that are making their way to elvex. This is not like a full tour of elvex. If you're interested in that, please reach out to us and we'll give you a tour of the product overall. But yeah, for some new things that are coming to elvex in late 2024, early 2025, the first up is sort of a multimodal approach that we're going to start enabling in elvex. So for a lot of problems, text is just not the input mode that you need. It's not what you can work with. And so as an example, let's say I was a hiring manager and I wanted to take, I've got my LinkedIn profile here and I wanted to take a portion of my experience, but I really needed this in table format for some reason. So previously in elvex, this wasn't a possibility. Now I can actually just kind of paste this image in, a screenshot that I just took on my computer, and I'm going to say, can you put this info into a table? And we're going to see that elvex now has the ability to read images for me, right? So this is leveraging some of the multimodal and image and vision support capabilities that some of the models have right now. And so just having that image in the screenshot, I can kind of see exactly what I copied and pasted here and put in. You can see that it's been able to extract all of my years of experience and put it into a CSV, which I could easily download here, or just copy directly into my clipboard, which is a super nice way to go.
What
The
models does this work with?
Yeah, so there's limited support right now for specific models that have vision support. So that tends to be the Anthropic, Gemini, and OpenAI series of models, and their later revisions that work for that. But it's pretty incredible what the models are able to do. So if we start off with another one here, this is a picture that I took at the end of summer last year, and I'm just going to ask for a vivid description of the image. Again, it's pretty insane what the models are able to do. I'd say it's often better than human quality in terms of the level of detail that you get into here. So it's describing, a bustling fairground or a carnival at dusk, and it's specifically calling out things like the name of one of the rides and a Ferris wheel and things like that in the image. Again, very, very crazy to see the capabilities that some of the models have. So again, image attachments, it's a good point that Sachin made. These are only going to be available for certain apps that are using certain models. Once it's enabled for the model, if the model kind of supports image attachments, it's going to work out of the box. You'll be able to attach images. If not, you'll see that images are restricted. You can't actually add them to a chat or a conversation in elvex. So that's image attachments coming very, very soon. The next one here is that understanding images, of course, is great, but the capability of a lot of the multimodal models means that you sometimes don't want to just create an image, but you actually, or sorry, that you might want to input or read an image, but you might want to create one yourself, right? And so for elvex, a lot of folks have seen our logo. It's sort of this sleeping robot here. But one of the fun stories behind it is that generative AI was actually in the background and has been used to create versions of the elvex logo, right? And so for sales presentations, maybe I've got one coming up right now. I might want to start off with a slide that's going to be a variant on things in elvex. And actually, instead of copying and pasting this thing in, I'm going to showcase a new version, a new capability that's launching soon, which is going to be speech to text. So I can hit the record button here, say I want to create an image of a dreaming robot on a black background, gold foreground, headshot only with a side profile, close-up portrait in the style of an illustration. Perfect. So elvex captured all that. I'm going to kick off a conversation here. And the very, very cool thing about this, as the response is sort of streaming in, is unlike image attachments, which do have to work with specific models that only have that capability, image generation is actually going to work with every single elvex app, regardless of the model that you're using. And so there you go. There's an example of an image being created and kind of streamed in with a little description of what's there. And of course, I can download it if I want. For folks that are curious, how do we kind of pull off the ability for every single model to be able to generate images in every app to do that? Administrators in elvex will be able to come in and configure an image generation provider across every single one of the apps that you use in elvex. So at the time of launch, we're only going to support OpenAI and specifically DALL-E 3 as the underlying model implementation that we're kind of using here. But once that is configured by your administrator, you can go into any elvex app that you have. So as an example, this sales meeting prepper one that I have, and I could enable image generation just as a tool here and be able to use that in my app going forward. And once that's enabled, image generation will just work out of the box. And last but certainly not least, I will just switch over to one other screen that I've got. So image creation is definitely going to be new to elvex, but as we've been talking about during this webinar, the idea of folks using elvex as a place to create work or to create or the starting point for a lot of the work that they do, that hasn't been new. That's actually been some of the use cases that we've seen ever since we've launched. And so this use case of like creating a blog post or a marketing email or a code snippet or lots of other first drafts is so common that it's something that we're doubling down on with a new feature that we'll be launching called drafts inside of elvex. And so to give you a sense of how that looks, we're going to play something here where I'm asking my elvex kind of home app to say, can you search the web for product launches from OpenAI and Anthropic in this month, and then create a segment that I can use for an upcoming podcast that I might have, right? And so you can see we're going off to execute a web search here first and discovering what product launches actually happened. And then based on that, something new is going to happen here. It's not just going to be a response in the chat kind of stream here, but instead what we're going to do is we're going to open up a brand new draft of something that we can now work on together with the model. And I'll pause for kind of 1 second. You can kind of see what I'm mousing over right now is that there's built-in options with the different types of documents that you can create or the different types of drafts you can create for things that sort of quick actions that you can take. So in this case, I'm going to say this was good, but maybe I want this draft to be a little bit longer. That's automatically going to create a new version of this draft, and it's going to modify it to be able to do that. We'll see that kind of come back in 1 second here. And every single time I'm asking the AI to do something to the document, we're getting a new version created, and I can kind of toggle back and forth between the versions that we've worked on together. And what I can also do is that the snippets or the drafts that we're creating on the right here are fully editable. So I can actually come in here myself and I'm going to delete, a portion of text that I just thought was maybe irrelevant, but then I could keep working on the draft if I wanted to with the AI going forward. And so the documents that we're going to support in drafts initially, the document format that you're seeing on the right is not the only one. To show another example of a different format we're allowing is spreadsheets and tabular data. So in this case, I'm going to say, great, can you now create a list of upcoming AI events in Toronto for Q1 of 2025 and give me a spreadsheet for it. And in this case, because I've asked for a spreadsheet or specifically kind of tabular data, you can see that the draft that we have created in elvex instead is actually a spreadsheet, not a document, right? Which just makes more sense for the type of data and information that I was asking for here. And then finally, because this is a CTO demo, it wouldn't be complete if I didn't also ask for a code snippet of something in some way, shape, or form. And so we're just showing here that we can do editing as well on the spreadsheets that we've got. But lastly, I'm going to do a little demo here of creating a code snippet draft for something. So I'm going to ask for help creating a Python script that can take a change log of stuff that we've done in engineering and then maybe use GitHub to create customer-facing release notes. And exact same as what we've been seeing before, we now have a custom draft built up in elvex where I'm seeing the code that I can go in and edit myself here if I want to, and some quick actions that I can take on the top, like adding more comments or adding logs or fixing bugs or something like that. So drafts is going to be available starting in early 2025. But we think it's going to be a really, really powerful way to start doing work together with AI in a way that's going to make much, much more sense and just feel more seamless inside of elvex.
Same question here you're using for Omni for this. Is this supported across models?
Yes, drafts are going to be supported across models. It's not going to be specific to only one. We may end up limiting it to only certain versions of models. There are capabilities that we're using inside of drafts that work better with certain classes of models, but it won't be specific to one provider.
And we are at time here, but we did say we will stick around for Q&A. And Mike, I don't know if there was one last thing you wanted to talk through quickly before we move over to Q&A. So if you can, stick around, please submit questions now because we will talk through them.
And I'll just personally say there might be a lot of people that are excited about those features. I am very excited about using those features. The cool thing about elvex is I use elvex every single day to help me move at light speed, and like those things are gonna help me improve my work and the value that I produce dramatically.
Yeah, the last thing that I'll mention, and we wanted to spend more time on this, but again, in the context of this webinar, we've already gone a little bit late, and so I didn't want to spend too long, is a feature that some of our current customers have heard us talk about, but we're going to be getting into more, and we'll probably do a dedicated webinar, honestly, just on flows when we get into it. But long story short, instead of going into every detail about the feature, one of the issues that we've seen customers have in terms of building solutions that actually work is that if you've got a very complex workflow or a complex series of steps that you're trying to describe with elvex, getting all that to work inside of one elvex app has been pretty challenging in the past. And oftentimes what's needed for large language models is that they have to take a task that's big and break it down into smaller steps to be able to work through that. And especially to be able to get determinism, right? To actually get the result you want every time you use that task, as opposed to something that feels kind of random or by chance. And so flows are an early direction from us. It's something that we're going to be putting in beta in January of 2025, and eager to test with folks, where it's going to give you the ability to kind of break down a very large task into something that's smaller steps that are very repeatable and that you can use across the organization for the really complex use cases that you might have in your organization right now.